It is Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024, and that means it's time for the Knee Jerks podcast with Nick and Big Al. A few days delayed, but we are finally getting the episode in. We will talk about later what's going on. But with that, we have a special guest today. Before I get to our guest, I want to get out to the usual introductions. I'm the Big Al, the Equation Al Beaton. I'm a longtime Detroit-based podcaster and blogger. Joining me, as always, is our West Coast correspondent, and that would be Nick Milanovich. How's things going, Nick?
Hey, not too bad. It's actually sunny at the moment, and you can see the glare on my face.
Yes.
But don't worry, that'll go away in about 5 minutes. And but
you
doing
do
well
have a
out
glow
here.
about you today. You do have a glow.
Yeah, I'm
All
not
right.
sure what that is at my age, but
All right, and as always, my long-term partner in crime, in year 15 or so of doing this wacky hijinks of a podcast, and that would be Greg Eno of the Greg Eno Substack, which, as always, is must reading. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Al Beaton. Good to see you. Good to see Nick, and of course, good to see our guest, who we will get to in a second. I am Greg Eno from my Substack. Every Monday, I'll be in your inbox if you just subscribe to me, gregeno.substack.com. If you're watching this podcast, it's right below my name there. Follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno, and of course, follow Knee Jerks on Twitter at the Knee Jerks. We are excited to have yet another guest as we continue to roll these guests out show by show. Some interesting folks here we're having on. We're not talking to the same old. We're kind of broadening our horizons a little bit, kind of getting outside of our comfort zone, and tonight is no exception. But in this case, I'm going to let Nick Milanovich do the honors of introducing this gentleman, because it was all Nick's doing, and I'll let him take it away.
right on. Thanks, guys. And so I'd like to introduce our guest, Connor Soblom. He is the Western U.S. manager for TrackMan Baseball. And I had met Connor 2 or 3 years ago now.
Yep.
He lived not that far from me, and we just met for coffee one day. But I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about what he does, what TrackMan Baseball is, and you'll be surprised. A lot of people don't know about it, and it's so prevalent in major league ballparks. So I thought it'd be great to hear about it and basically spread the good word. It's a really interesting technology that's being used nowadays. So with that, welcome, Connor. Thanks for making it. And
of course, guys. No, I really do appreciate you guys having me on. It's I've done a few of these over my TrackMan time, and it's always good to talk with other people and just kind of talk TrackMan, answer a few questions and tell other people that, like you said, that may not know the TrackMan Baseball name, and kind of talk a little bit about it and get the word out there more.
Right on. And so I think probably the first couple of questions I'd have is tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, and what TrackMan Baseball really is and where to find it.
Yeah. So basically, my background, I'm the Western U.S. sales manager here. I've been doing this for the last 3 years actually now, which it goes by fast. I feel like I'm still at times just brand new to the company, but it goes fast. And even 3 years is a small sample size when you talk about just anybody's career. But it's been good. When I first got out of college, I went to a small school, Centenary College in Louisiana, right in Shreveport, Louisiana. And so I played baseball my entire life, always had a passion for it. It didn't pan out, on the professional side by any means, but that's okay. And then once I got out of college in 2018, took a job with Budweiser for 3 years, bounced around between 2 different sites, Louisiana and Washington. But the call for baseball it really kind of always was there, always, being interested in it on many different fronts and wanting to get kind of back around the game, things like that. Maybe not so much as far as a coaching aspect for me, but, to do it like this, where with TrackMan selling a product into the baseball space to help out players of all ages is what really kind of got me back into it and really hooked back, in the baseball industry as a whole. So it's been a wonderful 3 years here at TrackMan Baseball.
Right on. And so I'm going to guess, and at least for the people I've talked to, they've literally, unfortunately, never heard of TrackMan. But it is, and I'm talking from a fan's perspective, really.
Of course.
it is everywhere in the major leagues.
It is. We've done a really good job on, working with every MLB team on an individual basis. We have two products that we sell: our fixed-mounted stadium system that we sell in every major league ballpark, and then it's at every spring training site, and every backfield type situation for the practice environment. But it's fixed-mounted and it's not going anywhere. But then we also have our B1 portable system that is specifically designed for the practicing environment, places like that. And it sits on a tripod behind home plate, a little bit closer, so that means it's on the field. But it does give you the flexibility to kind of take it wherever you want it to be, so that it can be bullpens, it can be flat grounds, which can happen just in the outfield. It can happen in batting cages, half cages, things like that. You can use it for simulated games type situations if you are doing stuff like that. So both of our products, are wonderful products that we sell not only to the MLB space. We've done a great job with that market, but it is products that we sell in the NCAA, in the facilities, all the way working with amateur baseball and really growing baseball players across, the country, but also internationally on a large space on, how can we get this data and what is happening in these training facilities and games atmospheres, get them the information as quickly as we can so players can grow on all levels of the game.
So I think if I'm not mistaken, so you have like the stadium product. This is radar type equipment that tracks every pitch and every swing,
every pitch, every batted ball, every player that's defensively doing player tracking on the stadium side, things like that, catcher metrics as far as pop times and throw downs and things like that. So and we're still continuing to look and grow the stadium product every single year on both of we mainly sell the stadium product at the MLB level and the college level. So it is a wonderful product that we're continuing to try and grow as much as we can.
And one of the things I remember too is like I'll oftentimes not have time to watch a game, but I used to jump onto Yahoo Sports and look at roughly real-time information changes. I know at some point they used to have the batter's box shown and then where a pitch approximately lands within the strike zone. And then I realized they'll have like data on like spin and velocities of the pitches. And that was TrackMan data that's being shown. And I remember it said TrackMan on it. So It was your equipment that was actually providing that data.
Yeah, obviously when you're watching baseball, today, there's a lot that goes into it. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say the pageantry that goes on what you see on TV is specifically everything that we do. We're mainly the metrics based. A really good place to see kind of TrackMan data as well is on the PGA Tour on the golf side. Where everything that's going on over there as well from the tee box, all those metrics is TrackMan focused and TrackMan captured, things like that on PGA events. So we work in a lot of different sports that people don't really realize. NFL kicking as well, when you're watching the big time games, the Thursday, Sunday, Monday, Super Bowl playoff games, all those kicking metrics on field goals and extra points is actually our product as well. And then obviously we're in the soccer space, which you would very easily see over more so in the European side, but we are in the soccer space as well.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize I knew you were doing golf, but I didn't realize you were doing NFL kickers. So.
Oh yeah. We have we work with a lot of NFL kickers as well. It's one of the other sports that we've gotten into over the years, and we're still looking to grow into it. Obviously, as a big time football fan watcher, I know that if we could ever figure out the quarterback solution, there's some major good things there. But yeah, that's kind of some of the other sports that we do still today here at TrackMan.
Well, I know for the last couple of years, certainly the Detroit Lions kickers needed help, but that's a rant for another day. So, guys, I'm going to kick it over to you. Sorry, Connor, do you have something else?
No, I'm open. We can just open to questions, whatever you guys have.
Connor, I just wanted to know, how did you personally? What was the hook that drew you personally into this? Is this something that you either have in you or you don't, or did you develop an interest? Give us a little bit of background personally, how you came to become what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so there was a point, actually my junior year, where I was still playing, but I had broken my hand. So I had some time to, 6 to 8 weeks in a cast to sit there and not do anything. And then kind of as your junior year in college, you're realizing, real life is kind of creeping up on you faster than you think. You can kind of see the end of college right off in the distance. So it was something that right early in that time period, I was looking sort of at that, what's that life after college going to look like? I did, and I found myself, I loved the sport of baseball. I loved more so the behind the scenes kind of things, like if you ask me like what's a dream job someday, potentially a general manager, kind of someone that's putting the pieces together on a lot of different fronts to create the best overall roster on the field type situation. And I found that, so that's where it started. Where obviously as a 24-year-old kid, you're not going to be fresh out of college stepping into a general manager's role. So you have to start looking at it's like, how do I get into these places? So when I first got out of college, I was doing a lot of interviews with professional teams. I did a job interview with the San Jose Sharks. I did job interviews with the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Minnesota Twins, a lot of different sports that I was potentially trying to start getting into. And eventually, living in those big cities it had some cost to it. So it kind of pushed me in a different direction of just kind of getting a first job with Budweiser and getting some general sales experience that that I needed. And then eventually, the call for baseball was still there. So you start looking around. TrackMan I had known about, was on my radar, trying to get in, and as with no sales experience, didn't have any luck as far as the hiring process. And then 3 years down the road of being a sales manager within Budweiser, I saw this opportunity to be the Western U.S. guy for TrackMan, and threw my name in the hat and went through the interview process. And it was a happy occurrence that getting back in the baseball industry in this fashion.
Talk to me a little bit. I'm getting some. Am I getting some feedback or some sound, background sound somewhere? I feel like there's some background sound somewhere coming from.
Yeah, I'm hearing that too. Yeah, it's coming from Nick, actually.
Okay. Nick's the offender.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I'm curious, Connor, about this seems to be such a growing. Al and I are old school guys. We grew up watching baseball and sports in the 70s and so forth, and we're not. I wouldn't consider us anti the metrics, but it's kind of, frankly, it's kind of dizzying for somebody like me. It just seems like it's coming in all different directions. The broadcasts of especially baseball, probably more so than any other sport, is just laced with references to all sorts of launch angles and all sorts of other things. And I'm just wondering, where do you see like the intersection, if you will, between the more older school, I go by my gut kind of a coach / GM, and are those kinds of folks going to eventually, I hate to use the word be extinct, but are those kind of folks going to be eventually in the minority, and we're going to see the younger, more dynamic GMs, to your point, kind of involve the ones who are going to be making the roster decisions? Are they going to be the ones that you think they're going to rely more heavily on this kind of data than maybe wouldn't?
Yeah, I mean, I come across actually that all the time with guys that in the sales process that I do, of like, hey, I'm a 40-year grizzled vet at this. I can just see baseball, and like, I don't need your fancy piece of technology, right? And what I always try and tell them is we're not trying to replace those types of guys. We're actually trying to enhance the overall package that is you. In the training aspect, just adding another tool to the overall tool belt, that is those guys that have that 40, 30 years of experience of baseball and can, one, just see it, but just, enhancing that a little bit and really identifying things with this technology the way that we are. Because I remember as a kid growing up in the age of no technology, right? As a pitcher, where I'd have a pitching coach that would tell me things like, hey, that was good. As a 16-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid, maybe I didn't understand perfectly what he meant by just that phrase, like that was good. Now with what we have, especially on both sides of our product, right? Hey, that was good. Now that conversation is that was good. Here's why it was good. here's an iPad in real time right there, every single pitch. When you do these certain things with your body, this is the results you're getting. Now let's continue to grow on that and the incremental gains of that. Now you're really developing as a pitcher, and you're not, no pitch is getting untracked or wasted, and you're growing as a player. Next thing you know, now you're 75 miles an hour in the month of June. By the end of the summer now we've gotten you up to 82, and we have all that stuff tracked because of this piece of technology that just is sitting there tracking every pitch along the way.
We're talking with Connor Soblom here on the Knee Jerks. I'm Greg Eno from my gregeno.substack.com blog. And, of course, Nick Milanovich is here as well. Big Al will bring in a second. And Connor is, of course, from TrackMan.com/baseball if you want to go to the baseball aspect. But just go to TrackMan.com, and there's all sorts of stuff you can find there. Let's go to Big Al. What you got for Connor?
Yeah, Connor, I know if there is one reason why TrackMan might be somewhat familiar, at least with the baseball fan base, was the robot umpire experiment with the Atlantic League a few years ago. And and so I wondered that where do we stand with the balls and strikes sort of thing now? Because I'm sure your equipment and software has advanced since that time. So that was 4 or 5 years ago. So where do we stand? And are we headed in that direction at all levels of baseball?
That one's an interesting one, and we're still doing that stuff today, even with minor league balls. Today we are doing that gives the freedom to the catcher, the batter and the pitcher to sort of challenge the umpire. And I've always thought, where is this going to go? It's sort of two sides of the coin. Do you want baseball to be in its traditionalist form of the human element there with the umpire, and you sort of live with those, or do you completely go to the other side of it, of the electronic umpire? And and there is no there's no gray area. It's black and white at that point, right? Ball or strike, and that's what it is. Now, you also have to think of the operations of a baseball game. Do I ever think we're going to see a world where it's just the catcher back there and the batter and no umpire as a home plate umpire? I don't, because there's still so many things, moving parts to a baseball game that require that type of guy. But could I see something where an earpiece is worn by an umpire and he's getting a walkie-talkied in and a ball strike from somebody in the press box? I could. It's going to be, what does baseball want? What does the fan base of baseball want? Do you want the truest of true metrics of what it is, the clear cut and dry, yes or no, ball or strike? Or do you want that human element still in there? But then you start to think of some of the occurrences in the past, right? The Galarraga instance, right? Where, if you had video replay at the time, on his perfect game situation where he was clearly out, where Jim Joyce called him safe. Now that guy's entire career may have looked a little bit differently even though I think today most people in their minds, when they think of that time, they still consider that, Galarraga to have, I can't remember if it was a perfect game or a no-hitter. Either way, he should have that on the record books. So I think, as sports continue to develop and grow, technology on all sports, right, is going to continue to bleed into the space to really make it the truest games out there that you can.
And kind of just to follow up on that, with the analytics part of it, I know there is a lot of people now that are, especially when we're talking about spin rates and things like that with pitching, and now there's this talk of an injury pandemic going on with pitcher injuries. Do you have a kind of a rebuttal to the analytics maybe playing a part in what's going on with pitching right now in the big leagues?
Yeah, you're starting to see a very unfortunate trend of pitcher injuries, and is it the and I think it's a little bit early to tell. Could it be the lack of a spider tack, a sticky substance on the pitcher's hands? Is it the pitch clock? Is it just different ways of not preparing? I don't think it's that. The people that we work with, right, these medical staffs, these trainees, they're wonderful people that have great backgrounds that could really, they could train anybody to the best of their ability, right? So I don't know if it's that. Personally, maybe it's the pitch clock, but I do sit there at home watching a baseball game. It is astonishing how fast a game goes now when you're watching it on TV. You can look down and look back up and holy smokes, we're in the seventh inning already, and we were just in the third. It has changed, everything. So I tend to think, that just that quickness of it might be leading to some injuries, but I'm not a doctor, things like that. Right. I can't speak on that front, but it's definitely interesting to look at all the aspects of what could be causing some of these injuries.
Yeah, it feels like sometimes maybe analytics and the new technology is used as a boogeyman. Yes, kind of, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, we get a lot of different guys that, and when we spend some time in the spring training time periods of the year, right, there's guys that they want to look at every single pitch when they're doing their bullpens or their batting practice. And then there's some of the older vets that you kind of have to massage it in a little bit. And, they grew up in an era that didn't have anything other than maybe a stocker radar gun, for velo. And now you have just this wealth of knowledge. We capture about 17 different metrics at this point, and looking to continue to add on to that. Now it's just it's a huge tool for these players of all ages that at the tips of your fingers, you're going to have this piece of technology that's telling you not only velo, but how much movement you're getting on pitches on an X and a Y axis, a Z axis for your gyro, your spin efficiency, things like that. Now there's a lot of knowledge that still needs to be taught across the board, because I get that a ton, of a guy that's, mainly in the facility space, of working with amateurs that, hey, I don't know all these metrics. Can we explain this so I know, and I'm relaying the information correctly? There's always going to be that, that avenue that needs to be addressed.
Cool. Speaking of metrics, you said there were like 17 of them. I didn't realize there were quite that many. Do you mind, at least for pitchers and for hitters, what are maybe like a couple of them that a fan would encounter normally or hear about, and what do they mean?
Yeah.
Could you define a couple of them?
Yeah. So obviously, you're always going to have what I consider the king of them all, the velo one. That's pretty straightforward that the fans know. It's just how fast is that, coming out, coming across the board and everything. But then there's some things on that you may not see so much on the scoreboard or anywhere. This is sort of a behind the scenes thing of in vertical and horizontal motion on a pitch. How many inches of movement is a guy getting from out of his hand all the way to the catcher's mitt? And kind of what that's tracking is, when you sit there in a practice in a bullpen environment, okay, I'm working with a new curveball grip, a new pressure grip. How many inches of movement am I getting from out of my hand all the way to the catcher, right? Is it 20 inches? What's the difference between a spiked curveball and a non-spiked curveball? If you sit there and it's okay, spiked curveball, I'm getting 10 inches of movement. Non-spiked, I'm getting 15 inches of movement. Well, now you've addressed and you can see I get more movement already on a non-spiked curveball, and let's continue to grow that in my arsenal. And obviously there's the tunneling of pitches and things like that. On the hitting side, right, there's more to be done, right? But it's obviously exit velos, how hard is one being hit, but there's also some cool things that we're coming out with for bat tracking, and things like that, hand quickness from your launch position to getting to the ball, hands to the ball, things like that. Obviously distance on the hitting side, but we also do heat and cold quadrants. So you can sit there on a strike zone and be okay, I'm doing pretty good on that inside if I'm a right-handed batter. That inside, getting good exit velos there. That low and away, it's kind of a cold metric. It's let's say 60 miles an hour or 75 miles an hour of exit velo. Traditionally, curveballs, changeups, low and away. Now I need to work on that a little bit. So you can really dive in with our stuff and kind of see as a baseball player, where your strengths are, but also where your weaknesses are, and quickly address that to try and make yourself an overall better player in the long run.
And another question I have for you is a lot of what we've talked about is, I guess, helping hitters and pitchers with their mechanics and, getting a jump on a ball or getting more movement on a pitch. What about, is TrackMan technology used to help with strategy in a game?
We do have some things that show tendencies, things like that. There's a lot of good companies out there, that do a lot of good things that talk about, 643 charts, develop things like that. So I think strategy-wise, as far as defensive alignments, right, I do think that more so there's some other companies that they're doing, because today we're all ball tracking, stuff like that.
Okay.
We're doing a little bit of biomechanics, things like that, and trying to grow on that on our portable side right now. But there's, so I think when you look at it, there's a lot of companies that are doing a lot of different things, right? Some similar, some different. And I think these teams on the professional level, the NCAA level, things like that, some of the groups that kind of have some money to invest in some more of these products, I think they're using a lot of different information sources to kind of develop their practice plans, but also their game plans and things like that, how they defensive shifts alignments and things like that. So I think there's a lot of technology and a lot of companies that are going into the overall process of kind of what you see on a baseball field that maybe isn't so much publicized and behind the scenes of kind of the ins and outs of between inning 1 to inning 9.
Okay, cool. Greg, anything on your side from Connor?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, Connor, about the future, because it's the past has been so frenetic in terms of its advancement. Al had mentioned a few moments ago about balls and strikes, and how just 3 or 4 years ago maybe that technology has advanced that much. Can you even tell us about the future? Like what kinds of things could we see? I don't know how you want to even answer that question. If you want to answer it in terms of the type of technology we might see, where you see maybe the existing technology going. Can you give us a little bit of an eyesight to the future of this stuff? Maybe then even, and not even talking long term, maybe even the next couple of years even.
Yeah, obviously, I think baseball is in a good place, but I mean, like any sport, you see it a lot in the NFL. Like, what more can we add or change up or reshuffle to just get the overall excitement for the fan base, things like that. So I do think here at some point on the baseball side, you are going to see the implementation of a robot umpire, just to test the waters and see how fans like it. Obviously, today I think it's happening a good bit on the MLB minor league side, but here at some point I think it will bleed into the major league side and kind of just see what's the fans' interaction with it? Do they like it? Do they not? Kind of like what you see on the NFL side, how they're going to be changing the kickoff rule this year, or they're going to kind of be going to that XFL model where guys start a little bit closer and can't move. And it's obviously for injury prevention, things like that, but still adding what is a very exciting point to their game of the overall kickoff and kickoff returns, things like that. I mean, guys like Devin Hester made their entire career off of being a kickoff return man. And I think with baseball, you're going to see, the continued growth in the game. Technology will be there. And, and I think the electronic umpire is the next sort of avenue that you're going to see this.
We're talking with Connor Soblom of TrackMan.com here at the Knee-Jerks. I'm Greg Eno from my gregeno.substack.com. Follow me on Twitter at Greg Eno. Let's bring Big Al back in. What you got for Connor?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if people wanted to learn more, what's the best way to kind of dive into this? Are you on YouTube, things like that? Are there videos and instruction type stuff people could watch to find out? If I want to learn more and maybe want to and see where I can go with this, where do you send them?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we have a great source of knowledge on our website on TrackMan Baseball. You need to find it there. We do have some good YouTube videos out there that talk about some things there, and our products, things like that. It's always, if you wanted to get more information, you can always go to our website, put in a general inquiry, which would come to a guy like me, and depending on your location of your territory that goes to, I can send it out to the other sales reps that we have around the country, and then you can be talking with a TrackMan guy, very quickly, because we stay on top of our game here of trying to get a hold of customers on once the sales side, but obviously just the general knowledge side too. We spend a lot of time, at like the ABCA show every January. We host a booth and things like that. Spend a great 3 days there where we get, that experience to kind of get in front of, the fans of baseball, but the coaches on all levels. Obviously, there's major league guys there walking around, and things like that. So we do a lot of different trade shows throughout the year. ABCA is obviously one of the biggest ones that we do, where we sit there for 3 days and let people really see our products and kind of ask the questions with us in real time and kind of answer as best we can.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up on it, have you run across people who came into this not as non-believers, and once you showed them the technology and the number of stats you can get from this, did they become converts?
Yeah, I mean, there's guys like I said earlier that hey, I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't need it. But then once they realize kind of where the market is going as baseball, is this data is going to continue to be there. It's not going anywhere. That's what sort of kind of gets them around to it. And then from there, it's kind of letting them really see how well our product works and things like that, and the ease of use that it has. That really kind of gets them kind of massaging it into seeing that they can really enjoy this, and it's something that does actually add a lot of benefit to their overall, let's say, business or training structure, things like that.
I have
another
a quick
tool
one.
in the belt, so to speak. Yeah. I'm sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I have a quick. It just occurred to me as you're talking. Did you mention? And forgive me if you did, Connor. Did you mention tennis is one of the sports that you guys work with?
We don't do tennis today. Funny enough, I have one of my coworkers here in Arizona. He's a longtime tennis guy. Played college tennis. He's our warehouse coordinator over here, and we have done some stuff with our baseball B1 that it does capture some tennis metrics. So obviously, there's a lot of different sports that we can jerry rig our baseball system for. Right? We work in softball as well. I'm not going to sit here and say today it's designed for these things.
Right.
But it can be used, and the softball one in that world is a industry that we hear from a lot that wants a system, and we're currently building out the softball specific system for that and platform.
And what about high schools? Are high schools in scope?
Depends. Obviously, we're actually doing that as well. The high school side, we get a lot of inquiries that want a stadium system themselves. Today, we've kind of we haven't dove into that market just yet. But as you guys know, there's it's a large market, and we want to figure out our pricing. Where we can hit, let's call it 80% of the market instead of just the 20% of the market of guys that have a ton of money, the private Catholics, things like that. So we're trying to figure out a price that makes sense on our end, but also on their end. There's always going to be schools that we can't get to just price wise, but we certainly want to hit the bulk of the market when we do go into that market.
Got it. Nick, anything else?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the question Greg just asked. Now, MLB is an obvious home for the TrackMan technology. Colleges are as well, and I think when I talked to you in the past, you were looking to expand beyond those two, really. And so, who else would you be looking for as like a potential user of your technology? High schools, you said, was one, but
high schools for sure is the next biggest market that we really want to get into. Obviously, on the college front, there's always growth within that. That the D2, D3, NAI junior college level. At the D1 level, we've done a really good job where we have, now we have, I think, 265 college customers across the board. So we have some great things. The data sharing network that really drives in, where USC, if they want to, if you have to opt into this thing, but you can kind of, game plan and see what UCLA is doing if there are two customers that have opted into this data sharing network. But yeah, the next market that I really want to dive into, and I'm hoping we can kind of get this figured out for this year, is either the softball market or the high school market. So obviously both big markets that are starved for data technology and things like that. And I think those are my two targets right now is, a softball specific product with its own platform and software on our portable side and our stadium side, because you can see now the college softball playoffs and World Series every single year is wildly attended in Oklahoma City. It is a very popular event. And so college softball is going to, it's already grown and it's massively popular on a lot of different programs. But when you see, some of the things like University of Oklahoma is doing where they go 3 or 4 straight seasons, being undefeated, not losing. It is some impressive things that the ladies are doing over there on the softball side. And here at TrackMan, we want to develop a product for that.
I'm curious, Connor. What is considered a fireball softball pitcher? What speeds do they get up to?
I can't really speak on that just because I have not done enough. We haven't done enough testing with softball. We're actually in the very early stages right now of trying to put some stadium systems to some places that we can get, but I know if I was to go out there and as an old hitter who hasn't hit in a while, facing any type of velocity, they would probably they'd probably strike me out in 3 pitches, and it would be embarrassing on my end. So, It's I have seen some softball pitchers that throw some heat, and I do not want to be in that batter's box.
Yeah, I hear you. For sure.
So, what is a TrackMan for baseball versus softball? What's the big differences? Is it a technological difference? Is it?
Right now, so we have a custom calibration distance that we can go down to 50 feet. Softball's obviously at 43. So one of your metrics that's going to be incorrect today with where our system is at is the extension metric. It's going to have a +7 to it. Things like that. There's obviously the ball is much bigger than a baseball, things like that. One of the reasons we can't use a stadium system today on a softball field is because the field is so small. It's just not so small. It's just smaller than what we're designed at the moment, where our stadium system is looking so far out for a baseball field. And when it's a softball field, it sort of can't recognize some of the points that we need when we are in the calibration side on the stadium specific side. The softball on the B1 portable side, where the B1 it'll work. Like I said, you have to, I call it jerry rigging on the pitching side, and you calibrate for 50 feet. You're really throwing at 43 feet. So your extension metric is always going to have a positive +7 to it. But if you do a quick subtraction in your head, whatever that number is, then there's your extension metric, the true number. But, I think we're going to have a softball specific product that is actually designed and done here relatively soon.
Connor, when I see those NFL quarterbacks and college quarterbacks, I guess, frankly, on the sidelines looking at those tablets during the game, in the old days, they used to shoot down those photographs from up in the press box, and they used to come down that little string, and they would look at those photos during the course of the game to look at the formations and the defensive sets and so forth. What are they looking at? Are they looking at stuff that's TrackMan-ish, or what kind of stuff are they looking at on those tablets?
I know in the football space, there's another company out there called Huddle that is all camera video based. So I'm assuming that they're possibly using that as well. I don't know though. But yeah, looking at that, kind of seeing obviously on the football side, right? When somebody throws an interception, you want to know, how did I miss that guy in open coverage, or how did I miss that, that defender? So seeing a Huddle product that is, straight video that you can kind of go back and forth slow motion, see some different things. I think that's what they're doing on the football side. So, and so it's impressive because, it's just instant reaction of what's going on. You don't have to wait anymore for after the game to go watch the video. You can find out instantly that, okay, this is what that guy did. And, let's prepare the next drive down the field of how we can be better and avoid, throwing an interception.
Interesting. Good stuff. Nick, anything else? Al, anything else?
Yeah, just one thing. Do you have yourself one favorite piece of hardware or software that your company has developed that really kind of knocks your socks off?
Some of our golf products are really, really impressive that we have. We just came out with the TrackMan IO, which is TrackMan indoor only system, which is a fixed mounted system that sits above you. We have the TM4 that what you see on driving ranges. It's just the orange square that sits on the ground behind you at a driving range, and now that my baseball career is over, the golf side has creeped in. I've always played golf my entire life, not seriously like I do now. Yeah. But yeah, we have some great stuff on the TrackMan IO side, the TM4 side that I would love to get my hands on at some point, just for trying to figure out my game. Where if I can somehow get into the 70s, that'd be great. Currently hovering in the 80 to 85 area, but if we can get it down into the 70s, I would feel a little bit more confident in my golf game.
All right,
I can shoot in the 70s too, Connor. I'll just have to stop playing after the 8 holes. That's all.
After 8 holes, I know.
Oh, some dad joke there, Greg. Good Lord. All right, Connor, if anybody wanted to get a hold of you specifically or wanted to learn more, how do they proceed?
Yeah, obviously, I'm on, we have our TrackMan Baseball Twitter. We have our Instagram, which is a great place. Obviously, I have my own personal Twitter if you want to find me, which I think my username is just my first and last name, as you see here, Connor Soblom. Things like that. And I'm welcome all, anybody that has questions to reach out and talk to me and go from there.
Awesome.
Right on. And we'll put a link
yes,
in the podcast to all of that, to TrackMan and to the Twitter handles, and anything else you might want to suggest. You can just shoot me an email, and then we can include those as well.
Great,
to reach out to you.
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
Well, I'm going to say, we're at a little over 30 minutes, and we want to be respectful of your time. And thank you so much for rolling with the punches on us on the scheduling, and we're glad we could bring you in here. It's actually really interesting technology, and I'm, love getting the word out to guys that it's there, and it's, it's real. It's not a fiction. It's and it's a useful tool.
No, I mean, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was a ton of fun, and just fun to talk about TrackMan, talk about the industry, kind of where I think, baseball's going. I could be dead wrong, but it's always fun to kind of speculate a little bit, and obviously there's people at MLB and things like that make ultimate decisions that I'm,
Right.
and it'll be fun to see where baseball goes, in the next, just 5 years.
Awesome.
Great.
Right on.
Thanks a
Cool,
lot,
guys.
Connor.
Well, hey,
Appreciate the time.
thanks for having me.
Of course.
All right.
Anytime.
Thank you, Connor. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
Yep.
Yep.
Hey, guys.
Bye-bye.
Right.
That was interesting. I really,
Absolutely.
because it kind of humanizes the boogeyman that analytics can be somewhat, and that there's actually very smart and dedicated people behind it all.
I think one of the things that he said that was most insightful was when I asked him about the future of folks who might become general managers down the line, and he said, we're not trying to replace those old timers. We're just trying to give them another tool in their tool belt. And I think that's I know it may sound like he was kind of hitting the ball over the net back over there, but I think he's right that the folks that will either accept that explanation and will be part of the solution, or will continue to be part of the problem, which is just the old man yelling at the cloud thing. And so I think a fine line is got to be towed for the person to be part analytics guy and part eye test guy. And I'm just thinking, though, as fast as this technology is going, and Al, you mentioned it with the balls and strikes thing, I just can't help but think that we're really going to veer way more toward people the people who don't rely on this stuff, let's put it that way, are going to be phased out of the game. I really do. I think you're either going to get on board or be left behind. I mean, that's just the feeling that I get.
Yeah, I just had to hold my tongue to make Angel Hernandez or CB Bucknor crack. So, I'm sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
Well, what the big thing with any of that, any kind of data you collect, any kind of number or metric, is, I've always said this in science, it's easy to collect data. It's easy to move it around in a spreadsheet, plot it, on like a bar chart or line, whatever it is. But it's really not trivial to interpret it and to know its kind of strengths and limitations. And that's the thing. And that's kind of what Connor was saying. It's a tool in the toolkit to help out, the grizzled old manager who used to do it kind of by intuition and instinct. It just adds to it. It doesn't replace. It's not just a one-to-one replacement. It'll never be a one-to-one replacement.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
I mean, that's the thing to remember. Like one of the things I see the complaining online on social media, everybody kind of goes after launch angles and all this other stuff. It's like, sometimes when people bring up, oh, look at this guy's launch angle, it's like, honestly, what do I do with that information? But you can do something with that information. It's just not what you think it is. It doesn't replace batting average. It doesn't replace, I guess something else replaced batting average already, but it doesn't. It has its purpose, but it has always a limitation.
Yeah, it enhances things, but not replace things. I think it's what you're saying there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, I guess with that, we need to kind of move on. Hey, Greg, do you have a birthday game question or anything before we get going? Or
yeah, well, absolutely. First, let's introduce it properly. We have, of course, a whole slew of things going on with the show. Al's got a lot of.
Greg's all about the quorum all of a sudden.
That's right. Al's got a bunch of stuff to talk about. But before we get to any of that, let's play a game we like to call "Whose Birthday Is It, Maestro?" Everybody knows how we play this game by now. I'll give Al and Nick a clue or two or three of an individual whose birthday it is today in the world of sports. And if Al or Nick can correctly guess that person within the first two clues, tonight they will win Electronic Battleship. So that's what's at stake tonight, guys.
Oh, so we've moved into the 80s. I'm impressed.
That's right. Moved to the
Yes.
80s. This person, guys, made his name in the world of football, pro football. He was born on this date in 1977. Kind of a younger guy that we usually do. So he's 47 today. He included as part of his 4-team NFL career the Lions in 2003 to 2006. Preceded by that of the Rams of St. Louis, and I will stop there.
You got anything there, Nick?
I try to block out the million years. Sorry, guys. That's.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I didn't realize they had any football players on those teams.
I don't blame you.
The only one I can think of is Dre Bly.
You are absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Unbelievable. That is really. Didn't Nick get it the first time last show too?
1 or 2 shows ago, yeah.
Yeah. Last.
Wow, good job. Yeah, Dre Bly's 47. The giveaway clue was that he was a recent assistant coach of the Lions that got let go. But yeah,
right.
Dre won a Super Bowl, of course, with the Rams. He did, and came here as a free agent in 2003. Made a couple of Pro Bowls. He was okay, but like you said, those teams were so bad when he played here. Even if he was great, he wouldn't have made a difference. But he was okay while he was here. Yeah. And he was a decent player. He went to North Carolina, was the 2nd-round draft pick by the Rams in 1999. Won Super Bowl, I think that year, as a matter of fact, when they beat Tennessee. But yeah, good stuff. Electronic battleship on its way to Nick in Seattle.
Right on.
All right, guys. I guess now we can get to the meat of the show. I'll kind of throw it out to see where you guys want to go first. We have a few Tigers topics, and unfortunately, in some ways, they're kind of regurgitating the same stuff we've been talking about all damn year so far with them. We have the Detroit Lions. They've made a lot of news over the last couple of weeks, and actually, for the most part, it's good. And then we have Nick's favorite subject, the Detroit Pistons, who just had some more. They had the draft lottery, and they're hopefully coming down to the home stretch of the POBO, the president of basketball operations, even though it seems to be taking way too long. So I'll throw it out to you guys. What do you guys want to start with first?
How about we just go with baseball?
Yeah, sure. Exactly.
Stick with baseball.
Yeah,
all right. Sure. All right. Well, I know early in the year we were talking about, the Tigers have been off to this fast start. It's the best start they've had in like 7-8 years in April. Well, so much for that, guys. They've kind of come back to earth this month specifically. The month of May has been rough. They just got swept by the surging Royals. The Royals are playing great baseball right now, in 2nd place in the division. The Tigers are 6-13 this month of May. They are now 23-26 overall. They have fallen to 4th place in the obviously rapidly improving Central. The Guardians are leading it. The Royals are right behind them. And the Twins, even though they had a slump, I believe they just recently broke a 7-game losing streak. They're still 2 or 3 games over 500 and sitting in 3rd place in the Central. And then you have the Tigers, who are now 3 games under. They're 9.5 games back in the division. So all of a sudden, guys, and I believe they're 3.5 in the wild card. All of a sudden, it seems like every year we would say, well, it would be nice if the season wasn't over by Memorial Day. Greg, it feels like the season's going to be over by Memorial Day.
Well, even though they got off to that, like you said, decent start where they were above 500 and they were okay, it just didn't seem sustainable. They were winning games, low-scoring games. They weren't hitting. They were getting outstanding pitching. The bullpen was lights out. It just didn't feel sustainable. Because in this day and age, to me, if you don't have offense, it's not sustainable. I don't think you can win consistently in today's game without having a good offense. And so I think we all kind of knew that this wasn't going to be sustainable. I don't know when we thought the shoe might drop, but clearly it has. Everything's kind of going south now. They were never good defensively from the get-go. Even when they were winning games, they weren't good defensively. They're still not good defensively. They're not good. The bullpen is leaking now. The starting pitching is, I wouldn't say it's coming apart, but it's starting to show a little bit. It's starting because, again, the margin for error was so raised.
I would call it stress cracks at this point.
Right, exactly. And so those problems, but the offense is just so meager. And so this isn't surprising. And I think I said on Twitter last week, I said, is the sooner you come to terms, I was kind of speaking to Tigers fans, as soon as you come to terms with the fact that this is a 75-win team, it'll make your stress level go way down. Now, it's still going to tick you off that it's a 75-win team. But just forget playoffs, forget contending, forget any of that. This is a 75-win team, and you either are on board with that and will watch that, or you're not. And trying to fool yourself into thinking this is a good team that's slumping and that, they'll get it back, and gosh darn, I'm so mad at them right now. This is what they are. I mean, this has always been what they were from the opening bell. This is what they were. They started off sweeping a very bad White Sox team, and they won the first 5 games or something, but it just wasn't sustainable. It really wasn't. And now they're not even competitive, guys. These games now it's 8-3, 10-2, 2. I mean, they're not even in these games now. So that it's starting to kind of the wheels are starting to fall off a little bit. I mean, I know that baseball is funny. You can come right back, and you mentioned the Twins. They won like 6 or 7 in a row, and I mean, it can change in a hurry, yes. But this is who they are. This is just, they're a flawed team that doesn't play good defense, that can't hit, and they're going to win 75 games, and that's just the way it is. And now we can talk about why that's unacceptable and why that's ridiculous still 8 years later since their last playoff appearance. But that's who they are.
Yeah. Specifically, I know all those late inning come from behind 1-run wins they were having in April. That's unsustainable. You can't build a winning season on that, because it always reverts to the mean. I know the Tigers, I think, are like Nick's second favorite topic behind the Pistons, but I know this is something you've been railing about, Nick. Specifically Scott Harris, who essentially, he traded for Mark Canna. He signed Ursula, picked up a couple of league average guys. But he came into this year saying, we're going to see what the kids do. Well, the kids aren't doing anything right now for the most part. Even their biggest name, Riley Green, is starting to really fall off. When your leading hitter, OPS-wise, is Winseel Perez, who wasn't even on the roster to start the season, it says volumes about your roster building, doesn't it?
It doesn't feel like they did any roster building with the offense whatsoever. I mean, they signed a couple guys, but Greg's right. I mean, what do you expect out of this team? They're virtually the same hitters as last year.
Yeah.
And they were 75 win team last year. How much more are you expecting them to improve? And then the whole stupid Spencer Torkelson. God, I wish they would trade him so I don't have to ever say his name again, to be honest. He hit like 2 home runs in a game recently, and people are saying, oh, he's back. Like, no, he's not. What is the saying about squirrels and losing their nuts? And I forget what the expression is, but basically,
a blind squirrel finds a nut. No, essentially, that's what he's
doing. Basically. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. He hit 2 home runs in one game, and I think he hit one couple games later. But so what? He stunk. Is he gonna recover when the weather gets warm? I don't know, to be honest. But I mean, you kind of know what you have out of him. So, and talking about the young kids, that's one thing if, these guys were all rookies, but some of these guys are now third-year players. Mm-hmm. So you kind of know what you're getting. Couple of them are rookies. Their catchers can't hit for shit. So, I mean, what are you expecting out of this team? I don't think you should expect anything more than 75 wins. And maybe even that's, optimistic. Maybe last year was a fluke.
Yeah.
Like who knows? So they did nothing appreciably in the offseason to improve the offense. And, I will say it again, and I will keep saying it. we're not going to block the young kids is a stupid strategy for your major league team. Block the young kids. Put some hitters on there. Give us some baseball that is worth watching. Only the diehards are going to watch it every night, no matter what. But for a lot of people, they got better things to do than watch a bad team.
Mhm.
So,
yeah, just the drive home the point about Torkelson. I brought up his numbers, his splits, and over the past 14 days, he hit 217 with a 280 on base percentage. But thanks to those home runs, he slugged 457. But in the past week, all those numbers have tanked again to where he's back flirting with the Mendoza line. So yeah, his back was essentially still a below average player, and it's kind of come to a head with some of these guys. I just don't know what exactly they can do at this point, because I know AJ Hinch was actually went on the record with the media saying, well, I can't bench Javi Baez, even though analytically he is the worst offensive player in baseball and actually costing you wins. His WAR is so bad. But he says he's not going to get better on the bench. And essentially he said the same thing about Spencer Torkelson. I'm not going to bench him because he won't improve if he's not out there trying to figure it out. But Greg, how much longer do you give these guys rope? We've been talking about this with some of these guys for 2-3 years at this point. And, especially if like a Torkelson and a Baez, I have a feeling more so the fan base especially, they're about ready to move on from these guys. But it just requires the Tigers to be able to do the same. And with Baez, it means eating like $70 million, which who knows if they're willing to do that.
The teams that are successful in professional sports are teams that are bold. And they can be bold in many different ways. They can be bold in player acquisition. They can be bold in free agency. They can be bold in who they draft, depending on the sport. But the other way that they can be bold is in addition by subtraction. And I wrote a column a couple of weeks ago. I called them the unserious baseball team, because as long as they keep rolling out Javi Baez every day, that in and of itself makes them not a serious baseball team. Yeah. In order to be where you want to be, you have to make bold decisions, and sometimes those decisions are what you just said. You said, well, how much rope do you give these guys? And I think we're we're probably too early to talk about Torkelson in that in the same sense as we're talking about Baez. And in the terms of Baez, we're talking specifically about a DFA situation. We're talking specifically about cutting the guy. That's the only really thing when we talk about Baez, that's what we're talking about. When we're talking about Torkelson, it's a little bit different because he does have the ability. He does his minor league options and so forth. Like I told you guys a couple weeks ago, it's not just as simple. And I said it in my piece as well. It's not just as simple as let's send him to Toledo, get his head clear, and we'll see in a month. What if he goes down there and never finds himself, which is very, very possible, by the way. I mean, it's very possible that because he's missing pitches that are fastballs. He's not missing, breaking balls away like Javi is. He's missing fastballs right down the middle. And you think he's going to go to Toledo and start mashing fastballs down the middle all of a sudden? I don't think so. So I think they're afraid. To be quite frank with you, I think they're afraid to send him down, not for the reason that you think. I think they're afraid if they send him down and he doesn't find himself, it's going to be an embarrassing situation for the franchise because he's a 1-1. Baez should be cut. I think there's no question about that. He should be cut. And AJ Hinch may, and I don't know. I've never met the man. I don't know. He might be in this thing about Baez, by the way. And you're absolutely right. He came out publicly and said he's not going to be benched. I think. He's right in the set. Here's what I'm reading that. I read that is I could be wrong, but to me that's a shot at the front office. You want this guy? I'm not going to bench him because we're paying so much money we're paying him so much money that if I bench him, what good does that do? There's nobody to take a spot. Who's going to play? Yeah, you can bring up some kid from Toledo to play shortstop. That's true, and maybe probably have a better slash line than Javi would. I understand that, but I think to me, I kind of read that as being Hinch kind of laying down the gauntlet and saying, okay, I'm just going to keep playing this guy until it's embarrassing, until it becomes untenable and you have to cut him. I mean, that's the way I looked at it, because Hinch has nowhere else to go with this guy. He can't sit him down and bring somebody in, because there really isn't anybody who's an everyday shortstop. And I think the whole thing, guys, this whole thing is based on the organization doesn't want to embarrass themselves. But sometimes these bold decisions isn't always about getting guys. Sometimes it's about getting rid of guys.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you'd have to think at some point that Hinch is saying all the right things to the media in these post games and or in the pregame where he talks to the reporter guys.
Right.
But you'd have to think that there's got to be something going on in the background. There's got to be discussions of some part going on between Hinch and Harris and the other powers that be in the organization about, they got something's got to change. And that's the thing, is that for a lot of these guys, they keep asking to see these changes and implement changes, and either they're unwilling or unable to do so. Specifically bias. That's the white elephant, the pink elephant, whatever, the elephant in the room. He's the pink elephant. Makes me drink once I'm trying to hit. But the thing is, though, there are bright signs. Colt Keith is hitting the cover off the ball now. He got off to a horrific start, and if you check his numbers over the past 3 to 4 weeks, he is, his OPS over the past week is over 1,000. Over the past 2, it's over 900. Over the past month, it was over 700. Considering that he was like almost zeros across the board for almost a month, he's starting to show why the Tigers had faith in him. And he's a guy that we want to see what you can do. He's starting to do it. The problem is, and same with Perez. The Parker Meadows, they finally said, you're not hitting enough. He went back to Toledo. They put in Perez in center field. He may not be as good defensively, but he is at least an above average major league hitter right now. We'll see if it continues to hold up, but he's actually a good offensive player, which the Tigers desperately need. But let me ask you this, Nick, real quick about the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we're going to see any kind of hot seat for anybody at all this year? Maybe Hinch or something like that? Because I think you have a fan base that's just begging for something to change. And as always, the easiest thing to change is the manager. I don't see it happening, but could you see him being on a hot seat?
I see, and I heard fans just before the show today talking about, starting to blame Hinch, and he's the problem. I still say bullshit to that. I don't think he should be on the hot seat. He's had horrendous lineups, rosters given to him for hitting. They've never had a good hitting roster, and they didn't improve it this year over last year, over the year before. If anybody should go, in my opinion, it's Harris, but people will criticize me for that. I think Harris doesn't take any risks whatsoever. Mm-hmm. He plays it safe. Mm-hmm. He can't do a creative trade or free agent signing for shit, at least that we've seen so far. Right. You can't tell me he's good for the minor league system and development and analytics, because that's too soon to see if that pays off at all. I think it's TBD. I think he reminds me of people in business who are maybe just above average business people, and then they get promoted way beyond their level of incompetency by a lot. Mm-hmm. And he's like risk averse, in my opinion. AJ Hinch, Greg, I'm going to push back a little bit on Hinch, or maybe not so much pushing back, but Hinch has this, he has to kind of plot the strategy for each game, how he wants it played, what lineup to put in. But there's another thing he has to do as a manager. He has to keep a pulse on his players' mental state. And so he can't be lashing out like a fan does, right? And trying to rake the guy over the coals. That's terrible management. So he has to back up his players, right? I don't think sending, and I think this was in your article too a couple of weeks back. It's like, what's it going to be? What good is it to send Torkelson down to the minors to get what out of it?
Right.
To try and hit minor league pitching?
Right.
Well, his problem is with major league pitching, to be honest.
Right.
And so if the Tigers have no good second options to Torkelson or to Baez, and they can't get anybody else. The only choice Hinch has is to put these guys on the field and let them play through it and hope that they actually, get out of. I don't know if they're in a slump or they're just being themselves. I think they're being themselves. To make the best of what he's got. I mean, they call it polishing a turd, and that's what Hinch has to do. So, I don't think Hinch should be in a hot seat. If he is, that to me, it's kind of stupid to put him on a hot seat.
No, I think that's more fans than anything else. But if there's one guy I at least want to, who I feel the worst for, is Reese Olson, the starting pitcher, a 2.16 ERA. But due to the offense, he's 0-5. And then he got drilled by a line drive a couple days ago. Didn't he have Jack Flaherty struck out the first 7 batters he faced a couple weeks ago against the Cardinals, struck out 14, only allowed 2 hits and no earned runs.
Right.
And he got a no decision because the Tigers lost 2-1. I'd be pulling my hair out. And people wonder why the pitching's starting to crack. That's why the pitching's starting to crack, as Greg put it. This team has no margin for error with this bad of offense. And I kind of fall into, that I think Hinch is in this people complain about, Hinch is still continually playing matchups. And he's going lefty, righty, and constantly changing who's where the batting order, things like that. And I go, of course he is, because look at the lineup. He's trying to absolutely maximize, as Nick called it, a turd. So if that means that he's not going to start Kerry Bonds, because Kerry Bonds hits like 150 against left-handed pitching, that's what he's got to do. The problem is, that's the problem, because the way the roster's constructed, it's just, I feel like I'm kind of talking about the Pistons, Nick, and that this churning of, I hate going there with this few. But this, when you said that, the what Harris has done, kind of lazy. What essentially all he's really done is troll the waiver wire and churn the roster and go after these, maybe these guys with some high upside but have not made the bigs yet. Like Eddie Leonard is one of these guys, for example. He's still in the minor leagues. It really feels like Troy Weaver, when Troy Weaver was picking up all these failed first-round lottery picks, hoping to grab one who may have figured it out, and guess what? None of them did. There was a reason why these guys were on the waiver wire.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll give to Harris over Weaver is Harris hasn't given up anything to pick up these discards, whereas Weaver's paid a lot to pick up Marvin Bagley and to get rid of Marvin Bagley. So he's on a whole nother level of disaster. But, what has Harris done? I mean, the one big trade he tried to make, it blew up in his face.
Right.
And
Rodriguez thing, yeah.
It's just like, how do you have I've never heard of anything like that kind of blow up that way. And I don't know honestly, I don't know if it's, extenuating circumstances, meaning Rodriguez's agent was trying to pull a fast one at the last minute, or what the deal was. But even the way Harris addressed it afterwards is like, hey, we've got a good pitcher for another few months. Like, no, you got shit.
Here's the thing that bothers me about it. I haven't been as critical of Harris as Nick is, but I'm starting as well to lose my patience. And one of the things that struck me was I read a quote from him that was made back in March, and I dug it up when I was searching for something else, and it made me think about what he had said prior to the 2023 season, and I put it on Twitter, and I said, look, before the 23 season, Harris said and I'm paraphrasing, we're about the 23 season. He said, "We're going to play competitive baseball for as long as we can." That was the quote before the 23.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The quote before the 24 season, which was made last March, and I caught this when I was looking up other things in spring training. He said, "Well, we've got a lot of young hitters, so we hope that our," and this is again paraphrasing, this is essentially what he said, "we're hoping that our pitching, which we feel is a strong suit, will keep the games close." Now, that's 2 straight years of very uninspiring words coming from the general manager of a professional baseball team, just a Major League Baseball team, to say, number one, we hope to be as competitive as we can. Number two, the second year, then say, we hope to keep the games close. I'm sorry, but I started to get really, really angry when I looked at those 2 quotes, and I know that they're taken a year apart, essentially. I know they were said under different circumstances and probably under different context, but the gist of those 2 quotes really, I think, speaks to Nick's point about Harris not being a guy full of daring do. That's for darn sure. And it's those kinds of things are maddening to read from leadership, to say, well, I mean, essentially just saying, we're just going to try to hang in there, guys. We're just going to try to, in year 1, it was, let's just hang in there as long as we can. Then year 2 is, let's keep the games close. And what kind of what is that? And somebody, I think it was in Scoobel or one of the young kids tried to say something positive in Lakeland to the effect of, we feel we're pretty good. We feel like we've turned a corner. We're going to go out there this year and actually, be serious about this thing. And Harris put the brakes on that. He said, oh, hold on now. We haven't earned the right to say that. We can't say stuff like that around here yet. This is 8 years now, guys, of really bad baseball. And I know Harris has only been here for a couple of them, but this is not what the fans want to hear. This is not the message they want to hear. The GM say, pump the brakes on anything optimistic, and we're just going to try to keep things close. That's not what's going to get people behind this baseball team.
So I'm going to add to that is, okay, you got 75 wins last year out of this group, and you talked about being as competitive as possible. Going into the last offseason, you should say, okay, how do I get to 80-something wins? Right. How do I get above? How do I improve over what I had last year? It could have been a fluke. This whole thing of talking about, this is a winnable division, that's assuming the Guardians, the Twins, the Royals, and even the White Sox don't try to improve. Right. Which we're finding out they tried to improve. Yeah. At least right now, it's looking up, how dare they improve? It makes the Tigers look bad. But no, tough shit. They're going to try and improve. But what happened with the Tigers? Nothing. Literally nothing. They made infinitesimal changes in their offense, which was their Achilles heel. I mean, there are stretches even last year where they did not hit at all. Mm-hmm. Right. They were, and it was the pitching that was kind of keeping them in games. And it's like this patchwork offense. They didn't have clear starters, and quite honestly, I think Hinch was a magician getting them to 75 wins, to be honest. So, no, I don't. I've kind of been. Harris has rubbed me the wrong way from the very beginning, and one of
the things, Nick, that I'm seeing now emerge in the Scott Harris criticism. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing a lot on social media. Is he's starting to get a reputation of people are looking at him and saying, I'm getting smartest guy in the room vibes from this guy. And I can't disagree with that. It's probably not as overt as maybe Bob Quinn was when he was with the Lions, but there is a certain I can see it. I can see why people would say that. Smartest guy in the room vibe with this guy. And fair or not, true or not, perception is reality. But I get it. I see why people say that. I really do.
I think I would blame Lynn Henning, because he was like, when Harris got first hired, Lynn Henning was saying about how smart he was. He's got an MBA and all this other stuff. Like, so what? I know people with PhDs that aren't that bright. So that what kind of degree he has is irrelevant. Is he the smartest guy in a room? I never got that, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I don't know if other people. He said a couple of things that caught people's attention in his introductory press conference. It was that owning the strike zone vibe.
Yeah, I think that's where it's coming from. Yeah.
And it's a clever phrase, but it's more like they've gotten owned at the strike zone. At least their hitters have, for sure. Then the other part is, what was the other thing I was going to say about that? Oh, he was bringing in analytics. Mm-hmm. He was trying to get rid of the horse and buggy and add cars to the Tigers, right? And it's like he was kind of dragging them into the modern world and trying to use more tools. And for all of a sudden, that seems genius. But does he know what he's doing with them? Honestly, he just sounds like he's like Billy Bean from 20 years ago. It's like total Moneyball, and that has its limitations. And I think the players that he's picked up, he's citing walk ratio all the time. It's like, that's it? That's all you got? So that hasn't impressed me. And anytime he's like giving the speeches, he's talking about little nitpicky things, whereas he's not talking about his vision and his strategy for leading a major league team and improving them and growing them.
You know what, Nick? That's another thing that I said in my piece a couple weeks ago is that I'm not sure. I don't think any of us are even sure. Well, first of all, there's two things I said. Number one, I don't know if Scott here, to your point about not being bold and not making trades and so forth, I'm not sure if Scott Harris has figured out how to acquire the players that he likes, based on this talk about owning the strike zone and so much. I think that all that stuff just made people's eyes glaze over. After 8 years of bad baseball, that's not what they want to hear, is people owning the strike zone. Secondly, I'm not sure that even if he does acquire those kinds of players, if those are even the kinds of players that are going to help you win ball games. I just don't know if they are. I think what helps you win ball games are guys who hit the ball at the ballpark. I mean, that's the way it is nowadays. The Tigers right now, I just looked it up, have hit 39 home runs as a team, which is like, I think, toward the bottom of the American League. And they don't hit the ball at the ballpark. You look at the Kansas City Royals, who I think this sweep might be the breaking point for Tigers fans, because the Royals won 56 games last year. And somebody pointed out that they've been to the pinnacle and down, and now they're back up again since the time the Tigers have been bad. In the time the Tigers have been bad, the Royals have won a World Series, sunk to the bottom, and now here they are again. If you look at the stats, though, they're doing it the opposite way. They're doing it with pitching. Last year's Royals team had about a 700, 705 OPS as a team, 710. This year's Royals team is around that same OPS, but their ERA has gone from like well over 5 to like 3.5. Now, is it sustainable? I don't know. But they've done it, and they've also kind of signed some crafty. They signed some veterans. You need veterans, and we've seen that with the Pistons. How many times have we said that in the NBA? And City Hall too. You need veterans. You can't just roll out 5 kids and say, well, we're just going to take our lumps and hope that things work. You need veterans, and the Tigers need veterans. They don't have any nobody hits the ball out of the park. And maybe, today a guy hits 20 home runs. That's nothing. That's nothing. I mean, you can run into 20 home runs by accident in today's game. I'm talking about guys who hit 30, 40 home runs, and you got to hit the ball at the ballpark. And that's what I'm not even sure, guys, if the type of player that Scott Harris covets, A, can he get them? B, are they the kind of players that are going to help you win ball games? I don't know.
I mean, so far they haven't, right? I mean, who are the only hitters he's picked up, really, that it wasn't like a 4A ball player? Canna and what's the is it Gia or Gio, whoever,
Urshela?
seem to be like, major league level players. And even them, they're not like anything that would wow you, to be honest. So it's not like they're big names of any kind. And then the other thing I actually start hearing is, Chris Ilitch doesn't want to spend money. I'm going to say bullshit to that. Chris Ilitch may be awkward in front of a mic, but he's opened up his wallet to Zimmerman. He's opened up his wallet to, we just talked about him, Baez. And he may or may not have signed like one other one. So it's not like he's not willing to open up his wallet. But he doesn't want to do 10 years, $400 million for one guy. And on this team, what's it going to matter if you even had one of those guys? That guy's going to want to be out in like a season or two because he can't stand all the losing. So I don't think it's a spend money issue with the Tigers necessarily.
No, I agree with that. I'm with you there. I think that you're right. It's a misnomer to say that a commitment to winning is just only tied to money. I agree with you there. I completely agree. I think the fans, though, would like to see some sort of, and I'm back to what you said about boldness and creativity and risk taking, and I think that's what they want to see. The other thing too is it's not only is it not just about money, but it's about the people that you're hiring to make those decisions. And that's where right now, I'm just not, I guess what I would like to see is I would like to see the kinds of, the things that Scott Harris talks about. I mean, he's very nerdy. It's funny, we're talking about this when we just had Connor Soblom on. He's very nerdy, okay, which is okay. But I'm not sure. The teams that win, the teams that are successful, look at the Yankees, look at the other teams, Dodgers and so forth. Are their rosters filled with the types of players that Scott Harris wants in Detroit? And that's rhetorical. I'm not suggesting that they are or they're not. I'm actually asking the question. Maybe it's not even rhetorical. I really do want to know. Are those teams filled with the types of players that Scott Harris covets, and is that why he covets them? In other words, why does he covet the kind of player that he covets if they're not a part of teams that are winning? I'm confused. I'm confused in the correlation between the types of player that Harris wants and the types of players that are on big league teams that win.
Yeah. As a person who is nerdy, myself, yeah. I never saw Scott Harris as nerdy. I thought of him as like, he's a Walmart nerd, I guess, to take
a poor man's nerd
to abuse. Yeah, poor man's. He's not. He fixates on one metric or one or two metrics and looks after those guys, and that's it. But then there's the part that goes beyond those kinds of numbers. And that's why you want to have some certain types of veterans in there that are willing to, in the game, take a risk, or kind of a pitcher who will brush off a hitter, so send a message, don't fuck with me. Or then a hitter kind of be, get pissed off and, try and, have a, basically try and throw off a pitcher's rhythm. I don't think you got guys like that. You have just a bunch of kids who are just like surprised that they're in the major leagues, and they're not. This is a Detroit word, is gritty. They don't have gritty players, and those are signature Detroit teams that people love. And this group isn't that. They don't have a Kirk Gibson who just looks like a mongrel the whole time during a game, but you rely on him, and he fights and claws to win or to steal a base or to catch a ball. So I don't know what Harris's type of guy is, other than just mediocre, if that even. So I don't know.
Well, I think grit is probably a good time to make a segue. I think which way we would go with that. And that would be the Detroit Lions, who are known for their grit and their blue collarness and their meathead head coach and their and their draft guru general manager, who have a fairly successful offseason. When we last talked, guys, Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown had signed big new contract extensions. And the guy everybody was expecting to get the extension had not yet been announced, and that would be quarterback Jared Goff. Well, that changed last week. The long expected announcement that the Lions and Jared Goff had agreed to a long-term extension. It turned out to be a $212 million 4-year contract extension. It's actually 3 years with a 4th-year option, $170 million guaranteed, a $73 million signing bonus, and very interestingly, a full no-trade clause. As things currently stand, when the deal does kick in, Goff's $53 million average annual value will only trail Cincinnati's Joe Burrow, who was at $55 million. And as expected, I think this was more of a Lions fans wishing for something that was never going to happen, just wishful thinking, is that this is a market deal contract for Jared Goff. No hometown discount here. He's a franchise quarterback on a very good team, a Super Bowl contender. There was no way in hell he was going to sign for Daniel Jones money or that kind of a $35-40 million year contract. That was not going to happen. That was a guy who essentially, numbers-wise, was at the very least a top 10 quarterback last year. So, Greg, your thoughts? Jared Goff becoming the long-term Lions QB, because now the dead cap issue, he's not going anywhere for a few years, because I think his dead cap would be like $120 million. So Goff is the quarterback for the next 3 years. Where do you fall on this?
No, I'm fine with that. There's some things I don't like about Goff. I don't like that he's a pylon back there. I don't like that he has no mobility. He's the least athletic quarterback in the NFL. But he's got a pretty good offensive line, which can kind of allay a lot of that. And he has played well. He's played well. When the fact that they lost that NFC Championship game wasn't on him. It was not on him. Which is odd. Usually the quarterback gets the blame when those kinds of things happen, but that was not on him. He played very well in the 2 playoff games that they won, albeit at home, but he played very well. I like what I see out of him. I think he's got a really good rapport, of course, with St. Brown and some of the other receivers. The team really I really feel like the team just loves this guy. I mean, there's not, that can't be taken lightly. They really, I get the feeling that he is definitely their guy. You didn't get the feeling all the time with some of the other quarterbacks we've had in Detroit, but I really think with Goff, I really think that the team really, really, really gets behind this guy. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the money. I like the stability. I think they're a young team that's got a lot of great players that are very young, so that's exciting. He himself, Goff, is not old by any stretch yet. Quarterbacks, as you know, can play at a high level deep into the 30s. So he's probably going to get another big contract after this. Whether it'll be in Detroit or not, we don't know. But can he be the guy to lead the Lions all the way? Yeah, sure he can. I mean, he came about a half away, 30 minutes away, back in January from doing that, leading them to he's taken a team to the Super Bowl already. I mean, I'm okay with it. I don't know what else you would do. I don't know frankly, I don't know what the option would have been other than to lock him up.
Yeah. And Nick, I think that Greg makes a point there that I think that's really what it comes down to. People say, well, how could you pay him that much? It's Jared Goff. But when you look at the numbers and look what he's done for this team and the options, which you really don't have any unless you think Hendon Hooker is the next coming, which, he's like 27, still hasn't taken a snap in the NFL. It's like, what else could the Lions have done? This was pretty much the only thing they could have done.
And it's not as though they're just kind of backed in the corner and, they have he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
He's a good quarterback. And I said this before, if you got your head coach behind you, you have a supportive team, you have a supportive front office, and he's a good quarterback, he's going to thrive. And he did. He didn't have that at the end of his time in L.A. McVay was on his ass and publicly, and it just did not create a good environment for him. Goff, by personality, is kind of laid back, so he's not that outwardly kind of surly or sort of edgy type guy, and so you may misinterpret that. But it's not that easy to pass for 4,000 yards in a season. And, like, what did he have, like 30 touchdowns this past year?
Yep.
It's not that easy to find a guy that can do that year after year. And he's been here 3 years, and he's shown that he could be a hell of a quarterback. You're right. He can't move. He runs almost as fast as I do, or barely any faster. But, they built a team around him where he can do his thing. He's been given, weapons in the running game. He's been given weapons at tight end. He's been given weapons at wide receiver, and he's making the passes. There are like very few games where you see like, okay, he just fell apart. So it makes sense. And, you used to hear I used to hear fans saying something about, let's get Hooker in there, like, never mind, let's move on past Goff. I'm like, you're going to go backwards so far throwing in a rookie quarterback. It's dumb.
Yep.
If you're going to replace Jared Goff on your team, you better have something better than him, someone better than him.
Yeah.
Because,
but the guys better than him, you can count on one hand for the most part, or close to it.
Right, and they're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually have a good quarter. You have other needs more important than improving on quarterback. Like, get a damn kicker, please.
Mm-hmm.
Improve your defense, which is I think they're trying to do. So, I think quarterback is the least of their problems. They were going to pay Goff for sure.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. It's hard to argue with based on how well he's played.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. And it's what's interesting though is that when it comes to the national media, it feels like the McVay stink still lingers because this is the time of year when the Pro Football Focus throws their lists out. A lot of the NFL talking heads, they rank players and this sort of thing. And for example, Pro Football Focus ranked all 32 starting quarterbacks. Jared Goff was right in the middle at 16, behind the likes of Kirk Cousins. And the reason is, well, it's the usual one. He's not mobile, and sometimes he struggles with pressure. And I just had to laugh at this because, well, he's not mobile enough. But you put him behind a guy coming off of two guys coming off of Achilles surgery, in Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. These things just seem to. This is the one that gets me with Jared Goff, guys. The guy just has been playing out of his mind here in Detroit for the past 2.5 years. Yet they keep falling back to the same tropes about him, even though he has done everything and more that the Lions could ask for him. And, would Goff be as good on another team? Maybe not. But the problem is, he is perfect for this team, and that's all that matters. So all this stuff, that's what gets me about all this stuff. Listicles and rankings and who's better than who is that, they say Goff is 16th overall. Yeah, he was top 5 in all the county number stats last year. He took a damn team and had never even sniffed it, had never even sniffed an NFL championship game in 30 years and had them 30 minutes away from the damn Super Bowl. So this is one of those things where off seasons frustrate me when it comes to these damn lists and how Jared Goff gets treated in them. It's a pet peeve of mine.
Well, that's a good point. You're right. People get stuck on narratives and sometimes it's unfair and
that's the word right there, narrative.
I don't think it's personally I don't think it's a narrative that Jared Goff is not mobile. I don't think that's a narrative. I think that's true. I think that's fact. It's not an opinion. Yeah. Now the whole thing about he's not very good under pressure. Well, show me a quarterback who is.
Yeah.
Show me a quarterback whose numbers, if you want to talk metrics like we were talking with Connor earlier in the show, show me a quarterback whose metrics don't suffer when they're under extreme pressure. Show me. Who's a quarterback in the NFL?
Well, let me throw an example out there I saw where they said, well, Goff's better under pressure. Know who had worse numbers under pressure? C.J. Stroud.
There you go.
Yeah, and he's like considered a top 10 quarterback after 1 year.
But
yeah.
Right, he's also more mature than Goff is as well.
Yeah,
but,
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like saying, well, he's not good when he's down on the count 0-2. Well, show me a batter in baseball who is good when he's down on the count 0-2.
Yeah, that's a great analogy right there. It really is.
It does get a little bit tired. I get it.
Yeah.
But Nick's right. If you're not going to improve, I mean, he's right when he says that if you don't sign Goff, you better have somebody better, and there's no one that's available who's better.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
don't forget the other tired cliche. He's just a game manager. He's not a leader.
Yeah.
You can't forget that garbage. That's like the dumbest thing.
Right.
So.
Right.
But speaking of these lists, I will throw one out that was positive, and that today Pro Football Focus threw out their top 25 under 25.
Right.
The Lions put 5 players on it, and number 1 was someone who Greg recently wrote about, and that is Penei Sewell. He was the number 1 ranked player in the NFL under the age of 25. Aiden Hutchinson was number 6. Amon Ra was 11. Sam Laporta was 19, and Jahmyr Gibbs was 21. But Greg, this kind of leads into what you wrote about. You recently wrote about Sewell.
I mentioned it before on one of these most recent episodes. I've seen enough of this guy. I can't. I know I sound like a slappy. I don't normally write like that when it comes to lines. That's for sure. But I just feel like this guy is just what I'm basing a lot of this on is not just how good he is right now, and he's going to be 24 in October. It's how much better he's going to be. It's not just he's good now. And it's not like I'm writing about some guy who's 30 years old, 29, 30. He's going to be 24, and he's already this good. Mm-hmm. I made the comparison, of course, and I made it on this program to Anthony Munoz, and I feel like the comparison is apt. And the thing about Munoz is that Munoz started his NFL career when he was 22. Penei Sewell started his NFL career when he was 20, and Anthony Munoz played way more college football than Penei Sewell did. Sewell, it's hard to believe. Sewell only suited up for 15 games at Oregon. 15, mm-hmm. That's it. And he was drafted, I think, 7th overall in 2021. 15 games. He played one full season. He sat out 2020 because of COVID. Played one full season at Oregon, and that was it. And so he comes in now at age 20, having played one full season of college football. And it's not like I'm not going to tell you that he from the get-go he was a Pro Bowler right from the game one, but it didn't take him long to acclimate himself. And I just think this guy, and he's got a certain. The other thing I said about him, he's got a certain personality that I think really fits Detroit. You mentioned Goff is good enough for the Lions. I think Sewell has just got the perfect temperament. He's got that big, wide, easy smile. He's a very personable guy off the field when you see him in public. But he puts that uniform on and he turns into a gnarly, mean guy. And I think that's what plays really well in Detroit. He's athletic. I mentioned Munoz caught, I think, 7 passes in his career, 4 went for touchdowns. Sewell has already caught a pass in the NFL. And of course, I know it's not about catching passes, but that's how athletic he is. And eventually, of course, Sewell will move to the more prestigious left tackle position and be a stud there as well. I can't say enough about how good this guy is. It's scary. He's only allowed 3 sacks in his last 2 seasons combined, which is like 1 sack every 11 games. He pancakes guys on the run block. He gets downfield, 10, 15 yards downfield and pancakes guys. He's an absolute terror, and it's unbelievably freaky to think how much better he can get when he's in his mid to late 20s. Yeah, and I guess with that, I know Greg's got a kind of a hard out, so we need this kind of
start hitting the home stretch. So let's touch on the schedule, which was released this past week. And yeah, it's a ridiculous, overhyped thing. I mean, the NFL is so good at this, at their marketing and making a schedule release a huge deal when no one mostly just sent out a PDF via email. That's that for the most part. But regardless of all that, I think the one really interesting part of this is now how Detroit has become seemingly America's team, so to speak. Because I looked this up to make sure. In 2022, the Lions' only national game was the last game of the year. Was it 2020? Yeah, 2022. Oh, yeah, 2022 season. The last game of the year was the only one that wasn't in the 1 p.m. window or the 12:30 window, obviously, on Thanksgiving. I mean, you could literally etch it in stone that the Lions were going to play at 1 p.m. on Sunday. That's where they put all the weak sauce teams for the most part. The only game that wasn't was the last game of the year. They got flexed to Sunday Night Football because that was the game where they knocked the they knocked the Packers. Out of the,
Yep.
Yeah, they knocked the Packers out of the playoffs. But every other game was a early window game. This year, if you want to say rewarded, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult on fans. They have 9 nationally televised games, 5 of them in prime time. Then you have obviously Thanksgiving, and then you have some 4 p.m. national games of the week. But they have 9 total. 2 Sunday night games as well, 1 Thursday night game, and 2 Monday night games. And they're going to start the season again with another, like last year. It was they started the season on the road versus Kansas City. This year, there's going to be a wild card rematch, Nick. Where they open it on Sunday Night Football, playing Matthew Stafford and the Rams. That is going to be the return game for Matthew Stafford. I remember last year in the playoffs, he goes, "Oh yeah, next year that's when they'll be more respectable for Stafford, and he'll be welcomed back." I have a feeling it's not going to be that welcoming on Sunday Night Football this season. To be honest with you,
and they shouldn't be welcoming because
Right.
Matt Stafford's going to be out there just like he was in a playoff game to beat the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on from Matt Stafford. Let's
please, yes.
Let's stop putting his wife on TV and listening to her, and because there's nothing there either. Just move on from him. He was good while he was in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first legit quarterback that kind of stabilized that position since Bobby Lane, in my opinion. And but he's history now. Just move on. To hell with that. The fact that they got all those primetime games is the NFL's not stupid. They're a magnificent marketing machine. And so their marketing people earn their money. And the Lions have earned for once a chance to be in the spotlight more than one time. So and not
you're
by
right.
accident,
The NFL knows who people want to watch. That's why they put these teams there in those. That's why you don't see Carolina. You see Detroit. People want to watch Detroit, which is shocking to me. But yeah,
and that's why I said a couple weeks ago. I said I think the NFL is kind of riding the coattails of the Lions, and why not? You mentioned it, Al. They're a very likable team. You said you called that out. They are. They're a very likable team. The fact that they've been down for so long, so now you kind of got the lovable loser element.
Yep.
So now you got the. That's already a story. The fact that they've been down for so long, and you throw in that likability factor, and there really isn't anybody. There's nobody that's on that team that's a jerk. Really, there's nobody that takes an unpopular political stance or does anything stupid or comes out anti-vax or anything dumb like that.
Oh yeah,
they're really a really likable bunch of guys. And now there'll be a time when, if they do reach the pinnacle, where they're not going to be liked so much by other teams. They're going to become the marked. That's okay, and that's all right. They'll be the ones wearing the black hats because they'll be the ones that everybody wants to knock off. And they're probably already to that point right now. There's probably a lot of teams in the NFC that probably already have Lions fatigue and would like to knock them down a couple of pegs. And that's why it's so hard in the NFL to stay at that level for the teams like the Chiefs and others that have been able to do that. I mean, I like the Chiefs necessarily, but I got to respect that. It's so hard to stay at that level when everybody's gunning for you and almost everyone's rooting against you because you get to a point where teams get tired of fans get tired of seeing you in the Super Bowl. They get Chiefs fatigue. I'm sick of seeing the Chiefs in this. But guess what? Tough until somebody knocks them off. You're going to continue to see them. And last year was a good example of that. You look, the Chiefs look like that was their year. That might be their down year. Every great team has a down year where they just don't quite fire. And it looked like that was the year for the Chiefs last year. It looked like come mid-November, well, this isn't the Chiefs' year. Maybe this is the year somebody else, rises to the top in the AFC. And guess what? When the dust settled in the playoffs on the AFC side, guess who was in the Super Bowl? The Chiefs. And guess where they won? In Buffalo.
Yep. All right. I guess anything you'd like to add, Nick, before we start winding things down?
No, I'm good on the Lions.
Are you sure you don't want to go off on Harris again?
Well, we're going to meet again in a month or something.
Exactly.
The baseball season we have until through September, so there's time.
Yes, and we were going to touch on the Pistons a little bit, but that can wait till the next show. Hopefully, at that point, we may have some closure on the president of basketball operations search because. Otherwise we just say, they suck at the lottery, and that's a stupid way to build a team anyway, and then we can move on from there. So I think that means it's time for our jerk of the week. So, Nick, I'll let you lead off. Who's your jerk for the week this week?
All right. You want to talk about fatigue? I'm going to go with the kicker of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, yeah. Someone was going there, yeah.
Harrison, whatever his name is,
Butker.
And I decided to listen to the entire speech he had at this little, it's a small Catholic college, and he actually got a standing ovation during that. But the thing that people sort of fixated on was him talking about women who now have graduated, and never mind your careers, your vocation should be as a wife to your husband. And he said stuff about people staying in their lanes. And to that I say bullshit. I think he is talking to a small group of people who all believe that. Maybe I don't know about the women who graduated, but at least it seemed like the audience liked that. But I thought it was dumb. It's kind of outdated. He also, I think, made comments afterwards after there was a backlash that he, wants to go back to the 50s and the 60s. This guy was born in 1995. What the fuck does he know about the 1950s or 60s?
Right.
To be honest, nothing. And that's just this fiction of how great. I think he watched too many Leave It to Beaver episodes and has a thing for Mrs. Cleaver. So that's. I don't know. It's just stupid. It was a stupid thing to say. It's kind of clueless. He just and wants to go back to the dark ages. And I'm going to add this too. He also said about men being men. It's I'm old enough. I don't need another guy to tell me what men should be like. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. I don't have to be this certain kind of, macho, fictitious guy that doesn't exist. I'm going to be whoever I want to be and like the things I want to like. If that seems more girly to some people, well, screw them. Being a man is being able to choose to do that thing that other guys think is girly and you don't, and just being okay with it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to get off of that. It's also going to sound like a Pistons rant. That's all. But
yes, the manly man stuff. Yet he dresses like a foppier Tom Wolfe. Go figure. So
I just don't. Here's the money quote right here. I can tell you that my beautiful wife Isabel would be the first to say that her life started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and I'm able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because the girl I met in band class back in middle school will convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker. I just, I cringe whenever men try to tell women how they should be happy. They always, when men try to tell women why what should make them happy, I just stop. Just stop. Yeah. I don't get it. I don't know why men go there. I don't know why men want to speak for women's happiness, as I don't get it. It's just, but beyond the fact that, like Nick said, this is completely archaic stuff here. Why you would even go there? I mean, I know the audience where he's speaking. Maybe that's why he went there, but you had to know that he wasn't just speaking to this little tiny group of people. This was going to get out all over the world, and it started a whole big bang. I'm with Nick on this one. I was going to pick this guy, but I had a backup. I'm going to use that one. Then this is not as exciting as the Knicks, but the New Jersey Devils. I was going to go with Jameel Hill for injecting race and sexuality into the Caitlin Clark thing, but I'll leave that one alone. That's just Jameel being Jameel. But I will say this: the New Jersey Devils look like they're homing in on signing Sheldon Keefe as their next head coach. And you guys know where I stand with Keefe and with the Leafs. And why the Devils would go there and hire Keefe, who cannot get out of his own way in the playoffs. I don't know what the appeal is there. It's not like this is not Scotty Bowman. Okay, I don't know why they're bringing this guy on board. He just got canned by the Maple Leafs less than a week ago or something. The Leafs have already signed Craig Berube as their new head. They've already moved on. They've already signed their new head coach. Why the Devils feel like they had to jump on and get Sheldon Keefe for nothing in Toronto other than have good regular seasons and fizzle out in the playoffs is beyond me. The Devils have some good young players. They have Jack Hughes and a couple other guys. They don't have any goaltending. I don't know what Keefe's going to do about that. They think the Red Wings goaltending situation is bad. The Devils is even worse. And I don't know what they're going to do, what they're thinking about by hiring Keefe, other than just they think it's a home run hire, maybe a big name, but it's not a big name. All Sheldon Keefe is known for is having underachieving teams. He had Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews and couldn't do anything in the playoffs. Nothing. And I don't know what the motivation is behind that. I'm usually not one to say quit regurgitating coaches. I hate the word retread because I think that's an awful word. But in this case, go elsewhere. What's the attraction of Sheldon Keefe? What is Sheldon Keefe going to do for the Devils that he couldn't do in Toronto with all those stars? That roster in New Jersey isn't half as talented as the roster he had in Toronto. I don't know what they think he's going to do with that group that he couldn't do in Toronto.
No complaint. You nailed it. Yeah. I would just say this, Greg. Anytime you get a chance to shit on the Leafs, go for it. So, but let me also just hop on Nick's topic real quick. I would also add that Peyton Manning was right when he came up with the term "idiot kicker." So all right. My jerk of the week. I am going to go with Fox Broadcasting, specifically because Fox had hired Greg Olson to be their number one broadcaster.
Right.
He won an Emmy last year as the number one upcoming game analyst. He won a sports Emmy. Well, obviously, we all know that Fox spent like $300 million to sign Tom Brady, and they're going to immediately put him in the number one broadcast chair. Well, guess who won the sports Emmy for the top analyst of the year? Greg Olson. Yeah, he got demoted because he's not, Tom Brady. And let me ask you this, guys. Have you ever seen Tom Brady show any kind of personality at all for the most part?
No,
exactly. Yeah. He always came across, as even with that stupid roast that was a couple weeks ago, I don't think he came off out of that any different than he was before. He just seems as this robotic millionaire who, I don't know. I'll just put it this way. Greg Olson got shafted. He did not deserve to get demoted. And I have a feeling that Tom Brady is not going to be the next Tony Romo, or for that matter, the next Greg Olson. So my jerk of the week is Fox Sports for essentially shoddily handling one of the best analysts in the NFL. So that's my jerk of the week. All right, we need to get out of here. I know Greg's got a hard out. So, Greg, if you could, please get out the social media and all that fun stuff.
Well, first I will say we didn't get a chance to really talk about it tonight, but
Yeah.
I promise you we will next time. We are celebrating our 15th anniversary.
Oh God, I completely forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah, we usually do it late Mayish, and that's okay. We'll talk more about it next time we're together. I want to thank Connor Soblom, of course, for joining us. Fascinating conversation there. Thanks to Nick for setting that up. Follow me on Twitter at Gregino. Follow my subscribe to my Substack, gregino.substack.com. I would appreciate that. I want to thank my lovely wife Sharon for putting up with this nonsense every other week, and I want to thank you guys for making, in this case, Wednesday nights so gosh darn fun.
And Nick, if you want to again, hammer Scott Harris. Otherwise, tell people where they can find you online.
I'll tell Scott Harris where to go another time. But you can find me. I'm basically on Twitter, and I'm going to keep calling it Twitter. You can find me at Nick Milanovich. You can see it there on the screen. And come join the conversation with, especially about Detroit sports. I'm happy to talk about it. We go back and forth all week long here and there. Some of it's complaining, some of it's admiring. I think more of it's complaining, though. But, just come and join other Detroit sports fans in the conversation.
All right. I want to give a shout out to Nick for setting up our guests tonight. It was I really enjoyed talking to Connor. So feel free to go through your contact list, and maybe you'll find some other interesting people to talk to. But seriously, it was a very fun conversation, and thank you for finding them for us. Okay, with that, let's get the heck out of here. I'll give a quick shout out to Greg for being here, as always, for the last 15 years. I can't goddamn believe it. Jesus Christ. And our lives have been through so much in that 15 years. But like I said, we'll talk about that on the next show. And we'll talk a little Pistons on the next show as well. So that's when we'll get to them. Other than that, I think it's time to get the hell out. And also, please, thank you to all the listeners as well, who followed us through thick and thin and all that fun stuff. All right. If you want to listen to the show, if you are a listener, please spread the word to other people who might find this interesting. As they say, like, share, and subscribe. And you can do so at the usual places: Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, which hosts the podcast on YouTube now, or on Google for that matter, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Deezer, Radio Public, Ghana. The KneeJerks.net is our homepage. That's where you'll find all the links to the thing. Like, for example, all the things we talked about today with TrackMan Baseball. The links will be on our homepage, along with you can do a direct download of the MP3 if you like. And other than that, I think we need to get the hell out of here. So, that's the other thing. I'm going to be traveling, so our next show should be in about a month or so. Again, as always, please watch social media. Greg and Nick will be able to push that out there, let you know when the next show is going to be, but it'll be approximately a month or so. Because be honest, between everybody, my life's going to be a bit of an uproar over the next few months, especially with Linda, the significant other, is retiring on the 15th of June. And so it's a big lifestyle change. We have some different plans, and we got stuff we need to figure out. So bear with me as I get this stuff sorted out. So, but until that time, it'll be about a month. And we'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure, and be ready for another Nick Milanovich rant. But until that time, this is Al Beaton saying good evening, good luck, and aloha, along with Nick Milanovich.
Ciao, guys, from literally sunny Seattle.
Yeah. He still has a glow about him. And Greg Eno.
Ciao, Italy. We'll see you in about a month.